everybody, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Circle. And again, with another very special guest with us. You may know this lady from clubs such as SCHC, Exmouth, Leicester, Holcombe, and Tilburg. She's a very impressive over 100 caps combined for England and GB, international achievements such as gold, silver, and bronzes in European Championships, gold, silver, and bronzes in World League, same again in Commonwealths, and a gold and a bronze from the Olympics as well. Other notable achievements: three-time goalkeeper of the year by the FIH, MBE in 2017, and then an OBE in 2024. A sports and exercise degree from Loughborough. The woman that started the impressive penalty corner notes taking for keepers in hockey and in football further on. I think a very impressive achievement is the red and orange colorway of oboe pads was named after her in our basic and enhanced goalkeeping sets on our systems, and is the assistant coach for the University of Connecticut, assistant coach from Team USA in Paris, and freshly engaged as well to Brendan Creed. Please welcome Maddie Hinch, OBE.
Well, it's quite a list, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think I was that old. I must be
impressive.
old if my list is that extensive these days. But no, it's I always find those moments super awkward. But I also really like warm feeling for what has been really a crazy career, hasn't it? So just I feel like I'm just getting going in the next part of my kind of chapter. But yeah,
Absolutely.
Look back at the hockey part, the playing part. I couldn't really. There's no regrets. It's just gone beyond my dreams.
Brilliant. It is. I wouldn't say it's getting old. I'd say it's done. You've done your duty. You've done your playing duty, and I must say it's been great to see all the coaching aspects. This sort of next phase of what you've been doing. I think it's been fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, I've certainly enjoyed kind of transitioning into coaching. I have to say it was not something that I actually thought I'd do. I in my head, and I've said this to a couple of people, I had like two plans on retirement. One was to no longer live abroad because I've just lived out of a bag most of my life, and to not coach, because part of the reason I set up MH1 was, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but was, to have that part to give back to goalies and kind of have that way of staying within the game. And then I was in my head, I was like, I'll probably just go do something completely different and get out of this bubble. And then before I knew it, I was moving to America and taking a coaching job. So when you think you've got it all planned, you really don't. But really grateful for the opportunities that have come kind of to me, and for people putting so much trust in me, especially in the early stages of my coaching career, because it's been a huge step quite quickly. But I'm really grateful for the trust, particularly from the US side of things, that they're showing in me already.
Absolutely. Let's start off probably where it started. I read somewhere that you got into goalkeeping in school, and it was because a school teacher saw you running around a rounders field, catching and diving to get people out. Is this true? Is this how you got started into goalkeeping?
I've lost track now of how many times I've told this story, but it's absolutely the truth. I joined a school. So my dad was in the Navy, so we traveled a lot as a family. So I was constantly changing schools. So I joined like in the middle of the summer term, so the end of the year, and I only had one more year at that school. And all sports that I hadn't really known. I was playing like football in Belgium beforehand. I was a little footballer, and I came back to the UK, was playing rounders, had no idea what that game was, and apparently I was very dramatic, like diving around, and then so the PT, I can see her say it to me now, like said, we have hockey next term, we think you'd be a great goalkeeper. And I remember thinking, compared to football, the goalie doesn't do a lot, so I'm not sure that suits me, because I was pretty active, wanted to be in the thick of the action, but I was the new kid, so I didn't have a huge amount of say. And back then, obviously, goalkeepers were not really the most sought after position. And so, new girl gets just handed the big bag and got kind of. So as much as they said they saw this talent, I do believe part of it's also I was the new girl and I was the only one that left that they could possibly try it with. But it obviously worked out to be the best.
Absolutely. I mean, it's probably how most goalkeepers get started, even here. Yeah. It's right. Who wants to put the stuff on, and it's the two people, the one person that goes, yeah, I'll give it a go, and they tend to just stick with it throughout. So it's great to see that it was such a young age that you got hooked on it. Yes, it might not have been something that you were initially looking for, but our small sport finds a way to hook people into it, which is always
Oh
amazing.
my goodness, if someone hadn't really encouraged me or just handed me the big bag, who knows what I'd have ended up doing or what direction I would have ended up. And you just don't know until you try things. So I've always kind of continued to say that with our philosophy, with kind of the brand and stuff, that, you just got to give it a go. And it isn't for everyone. It is very
Mhm.
unique and you have to have a certain characteristic. But for me, like the drama to it, the hero side, I don't know, I was playing a very strange style from the very beginning, apparently, really aggressive off my line. And that's why I probably struggled in the early stages of my career, because I was playing where the game's kind of gone much earlier on. And everyone just wanted me to stay on my line and stand there. But I thought that was boring. And that's obviously where shootouts then came into my strengths. But of course, back then,
Mhm.
yeah, I just kind of put it on. And I always describe those moments as like, for me, it was like having a second skin. Like it never inhibited anything that I was able to do. Whereas you do see some people put the pads on and you're like, oh, they can barely walk now, and they stuck.
Yes.
So they're probably not naturally fitted to the role. But when you see kids put it on and they're just running around, doing cartwheels, roly polies, bouncing up and down, you're like, okay, this is a good start, because the kit should feel. I mean, the kit these days is outstanding gear. It should just feel like a second skin. Put it on and off you go. And that's certainly how it kind of worked out for me. It took a little while to get used to the kind of the loneliness part to it, and the unforgiving elements, in that you can do so little and have such a big role, not touch it, let in five. Like that happens from day one to your very final playing.
Mhm.
That takes some getting used to, and that was probably the biggest challenge for me. It was never really saving the ball that was the issue. It was kind of the mental piece that took me many years to get used to. But yeah, it was meant to be. I do feel I'm a firm believer that everything's kind of written, and I was meant to be handed that bag, and I was meant to play this part that I have, and my career was meant to go the way it did. So yeah, very fortunate for those guys still to this day for handing me that big smelly bag.
Absolutely, and I think the world is as well. So, absolutely, and you said it there. You didn't have probably the easiest path or the smoothest way into the likes of the England and the GB setup and slightly higher, first 11 teams throughout. Did those? I'll describe it as hardships. Like, did all of that make life so much sweeter than when you were playing at that level and going, I've actually, not that everyone else hasn't worked for it, but you've done the hard graft, you've made it, and the likes of the Olympics, the goals, and all of that. Did that just taste that wee bit sweeter when you've sort of gone through that way?
Absolutely. I do quite a bit of mentoring these days, and a lot of the kids that I work with are obviously going through their versions of hardships and their non-selection part, or just challenges of life growing up as a kid. It's tough. And I always try and explain that I generally, to this day, believe that if I'd had a smooth start to my career, I don't think I'd have had the drive and determination that I needed so much more further down the line. And it's, it made me question each time I faced those challenges, how much I wanted it and how much more I could push. And without those kind of obstacles in front of you, you just don't know what you're capable of achieving. So I'm super grateful for them. And don't get me wrong, in the moments, I can see the day where I was dropped from the under 21s 4 weeks out, and I can see the call from Craig Parner, who I now work with, which is ironic. I can see it. I was at home with my family, and I'm distraught. Like it was yet another time that I'd not made it, and everyone kept saying I'm so talented, but I wasn't getting picked, so I just didn't understand. And in those sort of moments, you have a choice. You're going to university. You could just throw in the towel and be like, I'm going to go enjoy my life, or you can be like, no, this is. I'm meant to do this. I'm meant to do this. So I've just got to kind of reroute a little bit. And usually it's not massive changes. It's someone saying you're not quite there yet. Work out why and go after it. And for me, I did always have that. I'm stubborn. I'm a super stubborn. I'm one of those stubborn people you'll meet. And if people say no, I'll work out ways to change their mind. And ultimately, I just wanted to prove the doubters wrong. I wanted to prove myself right, that I had this gut feeling. This is, I can do this. But, a lot of the reasons I didn't make it in those early days were absolutely right. I was a bit extreme in my playing style. I wasn't mentally as stable as I needed to be. I needed to grow up. There was the role comes with so many more elements than just stopping the ball. And luckily I was surrounded by coaches that were, I guess, brave enough to say, look, you're not ready. And that's not easy to do now, especially in the position I'm in, more than ever. So I'm grateful for those guys. But of course, in the moments, they're horrible. They are horrible, and so many could just go, do you know what? It's not worth the emotional drain that you go through, and some people choose the different route, and that's okay. But without them, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have gone on to achieve what I did. So I'm grateful for that journey, and would say, the more you can look at those kind of hard, those setbacks as possibilities to bounce back stronger, as cheesy as that sounds, it really is. Like it will come good in the end. You've just got to put kind of your heart and mind to it. But easier said than done.
Absolutely, and definitely one of those achievements has to be the Rio Gold. I have to talk about it. I think I remember sitting at home watching it and getting the announcement across the TV saying that the news will be pushed back. And again, for our wee sport, it's unbelievable. And like that was us sitting at home. I can only imagine what it was like all the way over there for you guys.
I mean, I think the best bit for us was we were so oblivious to that happening. I know you guys will have heard this so many times, but like it was true that we had created this tiny little bubble for ourselves. We'd taken ourselves off social. We'd all changed our numbers. Like we were talking to a handful of people in our lives. So like then it was just essentially the team, the whole staff, and a handful of people outside of that who had that kind of intel to what was going on in camp. Thank goodness we made that, what was a really difficult decision, because we are a sport that relies so heavily on kind of that awareness piece, especially in these rare moments throughout these kind of Olympic cycles. The Olympics is really the biggest opportunity you have to put your sport out there. So to say, hey, like we're going to let the hockey do the talking, we're not going to be that visible as a team and individually, is a gamble. However, if chosen to do it the other way around, would we have won gold? I don't know. If, like, I certainly think, as a 27-year-old, knowing there's probably an estimated 10,000 people going to watch this, they are moving the news, you're kind of becoming a hero in your nation. I think I would have probably panicked. And felt that way more. Whereas I can honestly say, like, as a group, it wasn't about that. It was just about us and that kind of staying really present. And they were the things we practiced. So yes, when we left that bubble and landed home, little things like I remember going to the pub a couple of days later, and on the tube in London, I'm sat next to someone who's got a paper open and my face is massive in the middle of it. Like I remember going then to the toilets that evening in the pub, and someone had like ingrained, how they do in the back of the wooden boards, the wooden doors, like Maddie Hinch is, it's for Prime Minister or something ridiculous. It was like, and then tweeted me like, I'm currently watching Maddie Hinch eat a fish and chips, and I was like, what has happened to my life? in this crazy moment. So yeah, I'm really glad we had those. We were able to absorb every second of every moment in Rio together, and the outside bits weren't important to us in that moment. We were letting the hockey do the talking, and thankfully it was the best decision we ever made. So yeah, when we found the news had been moved, that would have been quite a lot to handle, I guess, in the time.
Yeah, it would, like I said, when that brief notification came over, I think like this is all a family business for us. So for us to see that, it was unbelievable. And it just, and again, the big question is, did you realize what you'd started with your water bottle?
No, of course not. Like for me, this was just me repeating processes that I'd actually done a few times already. So it's just that never been captured on that sort of scale. So I've been using that process when we won gold for in the Euros, when in the lead up to Euro, like it was all, in the lead up to Olympics. It was all kind of something that we'd practiced many times. It wasn't this just new thing that I brought out just for Olympics. It was just me being me, and the same for the girls, like their processes and how they approach to take the penalties. We practiced a million times, just no one had paid attention to those moments before, or were looking at those details. So all of a sudden this water bottle becomes a big thing, and the notebook becomes a big thing. And again, amazing, because now someone wants to know the story who doesn't follow hockey. That's exactly what we want. We want people to pay attention, ask us those questions. Why are you playing the game? Why do you do, how did you start? We want people to share those stories and to have those moments. So yeah, if it took a water bottle to grab the attention of the nation, I'll take it. But for us, it was just us repeating our process that we'd done many times, which gave us that confidence in the moment to be like, look, we'll give it our best. We'll go with what we believe we've practiced a million times, and we'll give us the outcome we deserve and desire. And if not, there's no regrets. And that's a really nice place to be as an athlete. Like it's like taking an exam, isn't it? If you've done your homework and you haven't, yes, you're nervous. Absolutely. That's good. But you don't feel that like deep dread that you could have done a little bit more. That was the goal for this. Like, I wanted to know that there was no more I could have done, and I'm just going to go out there, express myself, give it my best effort, and that's all anyone can ask. And if I'd walked away from that going, God, I chose not to watch that extra bit of video and go and do something else, and that could have been the difference. That's for me to live with. I promised myself I would not ever carry that sort of weight in my career, and just try and do it more than anyone else, I guess.
Is the water bottle sitting with the medal, or has it been reused many times after that?
Do you know what? I'm actually in the middle of moving, and where that water bottle is, I actually couldn't tell you, and I'm hoping it's going to turn up, because I was thinking heading into the podcast just about a few things, and obviously Ria flashed up, and I was like, "Where is that?" But I know it's here somewhere. But of course, it's not with the medal. The medal does live in a safe. I put kind of my medals in a safe, not a sock drawer, as people tend to say, or in a sock. That was in the early stages. That was it, because you were obviously grabbing it quite often and taking it with you. But now it lives in a safe. I thought about displaying it, and but I'm trying to keep my house a little hockey free. As you can imagine, it's probably a bit intense for two of us.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you've done enough hockey, and you can have a bit of a break.
Exactly.
And then going into Tokyo, obviously that was a completely different kettle of fish altogether. Yeah. And I've asked a few people that we've had on just what it was like, but I suppose it's different as a keeper. In that situation of no fans about, does that mean you can shout about a bit more? You can, actually, if you're shouting to your defense, your defense can actually hear you, opposed to in the unique situation of Olympics where it's packed, there's loads of people shouting about. Does that help a bit more, or was it just completely eerie and not something, obviously we never wanted to happen again, but not something that you want to do again, that just emptiness?
Yeah, it's a funny one. Tokyo, I don't ever remember feeling like, oh, this is weird. Like, I don't know. I think it's probably because obviously in the lead up to Tokyo, we were already kind of used to this like emptiness piece. So we were already kind of prepared for that feeling. So I never remember thinking like, maybe I did. I'm sure first game it was like, oh, this is a shame. There was definitely that side to it. Like, I reckon Tokyo would be one of the best games ever. Like, it already was amazing, all things considered. But it was a shame. But in terms of like the playing piece, like if I think about that bronze medal match, that was one of the most intense games of hockey I've ever played. Probably one of the most nerve-wracking. And I don't for one second remember there being like a lack of atmosphere or just like it feeling any different, because it is a case of usually after the anthems, you're just so unaware of like who's watching, how many is watching, the reality of the situation around you. You're just so kind of in that moment and present with what's in front of you. So I don't remember that being necessarily an issue. It would have been nice in the fact that if I communicated everyone, every member of the team and the bench probably would have heard what I'm saying, which I don't know was a good thing. That side of it was helpful, because that is definitely a factor. We've had to prepare for games where we know we've had big crowds, like in Argentina, for example. Or Birmingham Commonwealth Games, like there's moments where you have to talk about like what happens if you can't hear me. We practice those things in training. We sometimes train in silence to practice your ability to actually just look and be aware of your surroundings rather than relying on the person around you and things like that, or play crowd noise. And there's all sorts of stuff you can do. But Tokyo itself, I don't remember that being necessarily a thing. It was just a case of, thank goodness it's going ahead. This is a real shame that it is what it is, but thank goodness we're here and we have an opportunity to defend our title and go for a medal, and we're just grateful for that. So still an amazing experience, just a very unique one.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. And the grounds in the village of Tokyo looked absolutely fantastic. I was speaking to Giselle Ansley, and she was saying that the view from the GB house was incredible. And so it was stuff like that, just, and actually probably with the less people meant that you could probably appreciate the sort of surroundings that you were in a bit more, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. And it was a really an amazing game. And I think like the people for me made it. They were just the most amazing people, and the volunteers, and just the smiles and energy they brought was just made me think this would have been one of the best Olympics in my opinion. And it was, like, again, for them to pull off what they did, all things considered, and keep people safe was an incredible achievement. And we had a great time. And of course that helped because we medaled and probably achieved something that many would have predicted that we wouldn't. But that's something that we quite like doing, was going against the grain a bit and showing people that ultimately when you're there, anything's possible. And that's certainly a belief as a group that we've always had. And the many teams that go on, I'm sure it's a legacy piece that when you play for GB, you just got to get yourself there, because you really can. Once you're in the mix, you can achieve anything. So, and that was just another kind of fairy tale moment for us as a program.
Brilliant. It would be a shame not to mention all the stuff that you play in. So currently you're using Mizuno hockey shoes,
Yes.
and obviously Mizuno sponsor the MH1 camps as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's a silly question, but what actually drew you to the Mizuno shoes? I've played in them before. I thought they've been fantastic. What, as a keeper, what do you look at in the likes of those Mizuno shoes that you go, actually, that's going to be a good shoe?
Yeah, I mean, uh, yeah, for me, obviously, I was still playing when we moved across from an MH1 coaching perspective. We were looking for, a partner kind of in that field and to support a lot of our apparel stuff as well. And I guess their shoes, I think, had started to sneak into the market.
Mm.
I'd noticed them a lot in Holland. Obviously, that's usually how things start. You're like, oh, someone turns up to training with a shiny new pair of
Yep.
shoes. And you're like, oh, what's that? I think that's pretty much how it started for me. Took an interest in them, got to try on a pair. And for me, it was an absolute no-brainer. I'm not just saying this because I don't need to, but ultimately, for me, it's the quality of build, and they just do the job they're supposed to do. So they just fit to your foot in a way that makes you feel safe and secure. I think that's one of the biggest things athletes look for. Like, how much is this shoe going to protect me? And that's definitely a case for goalkeepers as well. Like, a lot of our movement and power is driven from the ability to plant your foot well and stay strong in those moments. So for me, that was number one, and comfort, another one, and waterproof.
Yeah.
As much as that might not be for a big thing, for me, that's massive. Like, I can't afford to be adding on more weight.
Yes.
More weight.
Absolutely.
I can't afford to be traveling with 4 or 5 pairs of Astros when I'm playing in X amount of temperatures and humidities and water bases. So for me to be able to travel with a couple of pairs, as much as people probably think we traveled with endless amounts of luggage, I can assure you that was not the case. We're very limited, especially as a goalie. I got even less allowance.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a big one. And they look great. So they're just a great looking shoe. They do the job. They protect you. Super comfortable, and you just can get kind of the most out of your performance with those shoes. And I just absolutely love them. I think they've only gone from strength to strength since they've kind of come into the market. It's a really reputable brand that's had many, many years in kind of that industry and footwear. So that gives you that confidence that they just know what they're doing, and they're going to build a shoe that's kind of going to do what it's supposed to do, and built to last as well. So for me, Mizuno, I love their products. It's not just their shoes. I love everything about it. Everything's built with quality and a real sense of purpose. It's been a good move for us, and I've enjoyed being part of their piece so far.
Oh, brilliant. And it's an interesting one as a keeper with hockey shoes, because we've often said when people come in, do you do anything to your shoes to make them fit in line with your straps? Do you take go to the stud? Do you do anything that to just make it a bit more even? Because some people, we always go like some grips and have that nice line where you can get it grooved in and it's fine. The likes of the Mizunos, and they're slightly more sort of cleat style. You just take a wee nick out of them to get it all squared up.
Yeah, I have to say I've never had to do that. I don't know whether it's partly based on, obviously it's really different on like your foot size. So if I'm wearing, I always wear like a size 5, not the biggest of feet. But for me, that kind of just works quite nicely, as long as that's that deepest strap, not the front one, sat behind that top level of, like, as you say, cleats. Then you always had that, your kicker wasn't going to move because that kind of held it. Now the front one is always, I think, the one that is the bugbear for every goalie out there, that little toe strap that pops out. Again, I never really had that issue too much, but I didn't make any amendments to my shoes. For me, the Mizuno the lines of the grips kind of lined up nicely for my foot, but would that apply for every single size? I don't think so, because we're all going to vary slightly. And I know people have had a lot of success with just making slight changes to that top kind of strap position to hold it in place. But I think that as long as the deep strap can fit behind kind of those main hub of cleats at the front, then your kicker is not going to move. And that's really important, because what you don't want is obviously your toe exposing, and then you kind of exposing yourself to injuries there. So yeah, I have to say I was lucky that I didn't really have to make even more modifications to make it, because I was someone that would like to change bits and bobs to my goalie kit and add this there and do that there, and I became obsessed with that. So the fact that I could just put a pair of shoes on, get in and play, or Astros, sorry, was helpful.
Oh, brilliant. And then obviously use the oboe pads, kickers, and things. What do you think of their square plus range, just in general? Because like some people absolutely love the kickers, some people absolutely love the leg guards. Again, it seems the keepers are lovely and unique people, so it all seems to be just some suit some people's style. I see that you wear the plus, you wear everything plus bar the right hand as the standard one, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the kickers, when the new style kickers came out, obviously with that square toe, obviously there's people talk about the option to kick with the front of the toe. That's not something I'm ever going to encourage, nor did I do. But maybe I missed it. Maybe I missed something there, and that could have saved me a fair bit of footwork. But for me, the design offered way more protection to that front toe, because I think the previous kick, and I'm sure Obo won't mind me saying this, definitely we lacked a little protection around that kind of top end. And as you really reach those kind of top level games, especially in the men's game, like the shots are just so hard. You really
Yeah.
need that extra kind of bit of reach. And the nice thing about it is, because it's flat there, it stops the ball popping up as much as the old kickers did. So they're just generally way more protected. You have much more control in what you're doing, especially in kind of those control kicking movements. I just found that I could really feel my kicks better. So for me, the kickers were a huge bit of progress. I did always still add an extra layer of foam inside my kickers, just to give
Okay.
me even more. Now, a lot of people ask me questions around that and why I did it. I think it's partly because I played abroad so much in countries where it was hot, that for me the foam softens, and it softened a
Yeah.
bit too much. And I don't know whether I just have really sensitive feet or whether I'm just a sensitive human, but I would feel stuff, and when I would feel it, for me that I would lose a little bit of confidence in kind of fully attacking the ball. So I would just add an extra layer of foam inside. Didn't really change much to how it fit or felt, but it certainly gave me that extra confidence piece. And then with the leg guards, yeah, the new obviously square leg guards, that's an interesting one, because when I first saw them, again, like change for me was never something I looked forward to. I liked it. Once I was comfortable in my kit, I didn't really want to change it. And Neil at Uber would always be like, "Man, we've got some new stuff," and he'd always be trying to upgrade to the next gear, and I was always happy. So when the square ones came out, one of the first things that I was concerned about was sliding. And again, I think that's a really common a bit of feedback so far around those ones. But it's interesting. Like you soon adapt if you stick to stuff. You'll soon adapt the way you're sliding to get those to kind of play into their strengths. And for me, that extra bit of surface area, that kind of rigidity to the leg guard, allows you to play that kind of more upright style and have more control in what you're doing. And ultimately, we want goalkeepers to stay on their feet as much as they can. It's not that we don't want them to go to ground at all, but you need to have a good balance of both. And if you can stay on your feet, you're stronger for second phase and you're more in the game. So that leg guard really suits that style of, I think, the direction the game's going. So for me, after a bit of what are these? I realized the benefit it could add to my game. And yeah, I absolutely love like leg guard saves. They're without doubt my favorite save of the game, because it's just a smooth, beautiful action and can make the hardest, most difficult looking shot look like such a comfortable, easy save, which is super for forwards. So for me, those leg guards are designed perfectly to execute those saves beautifully. And that's something, the leg guard side of the game is something I developed a lot when I was actually playing in Holland. I think that's something they do and coach very well over there. So yeah, I really enjoy that whole piece. And then with the gloves, again, the left glove has come on brilliantly. I think they've made huge progress with that. And the right one, a lot of people ask me, why didn't I push on to the new? I think it's just preference. For me, I really love that one that so many hate. It's like a big, you have to hold you get again. It took me a year to transition into that glove, but it offers more surface area, it offers more stiffness and protection. So for me, it was a case of, when I can get there, I know this will be a benefit, but it's just patience and being willing to kind of learn to love it, I guess, and learn to understand it. And I think a lot of people, they don't have the luxury that I had, in that I could ask for a glove and take my time getting used to it. That's not the case for everyone. So I can understand the concerns people will have transitioning into the new styles. But for me, if you have a bit of patience and you kind of think, okay, well, what will it give me if I can get there? Then you will get there with this stuff. So yeah, for me, I've come a long way, especially in those kind of last, I say 5-6 years. The kit's really pushed on. It's exciting what direction they're going.
Absolutely. And is just quickly with your camps, is it something that you would, because I know again, outfielders and goalkeepers, completely different people. Like a bit like you said, someone arrives with something new as an outfielder, you go, "Oh, here, give me it. I want to have a feel." You're all using someone else's for a train session. In your camps, would you go, "Here, let someone try that glove," or because every keeper's different. Every style of keeper's different on how they play. Would you encourage keepers, if you're in a club or in school, to go, oh, here, can I try your hand guards out for a session to see actually does that suit me? Or because like you said, it's not as easy to walk in and go, right, I'm
Of
going to get
course.
those, and then if you don't like them, you're stuck.
Yeah, I think that's something definitely at MH1 with our partnership with Obo, that we're trying to get the direction that we could go. Obviously, everything is reliant on stock and storing all the
Mm-hmm.
gear. And if you have like X amount of demo kit, my garage becomes incredibly full.
Yes.
So one of the nicest things that we have done over the recent years is introduce these pop-up shops on camps where now you can go and get fitted for kit. So that's something that already before then was basically non-existent. You know, you order
Mm.
online, you get your gear, and then everyone thinks, well, if I don't like it, I've got to ship this massive stuff back to Obo, and that just puts people off. So the concept of being able to come down to a camp and say, okay, I want to book a slot and I want to try on a head-to-toe set of Obo kit. We're not in a position right now to be saying, okay, yeah, take that kit out and play in it all day at MH
Yes.
and let us know. But of course, I know for sure that Obo are always open to saying, hey, look, I'm going to an MH1 camp on the weekend. I'm really thinking about transitioning over to that right glove. Is there any chance we could get a demo one in? And that's something we can certainly adapt for and say, okay, look come in and try that. We'll provide that piece of kit there. What we can't do is provide it for all 75 goalies that day.
Yes, absolutely.
But we are and so obviously Obo aware of the challenges that goalkeepers face when they're purchasing kit, and that's something we're definitely trying to overcome at MH1. And the pop-up stores, the ability to come try it on, see the full ranges, have that education piece, which I think is massive. Talk to people who really know, and I've got a good understanding of the product. These sort of things we've received a huge amount of positive feedback and the value that brings alongside our camps. So I'm really pleased that we have that piece operating, and I think it's only going from strength to strength. So fingers crossed we do get to a stage where we can say, hey, yeah, we've got a couple of demo right gloves here and try on these kickers for this session. But yeah, when you open up that door, it's a tricky one.
Oh, it's a nightmare. Absolutely, it's the same with us. Like anytime someone comes in, but like yourself coming in for a full new keeper set, or they're always going, "It could be great if you go and try this." And you're going, "It would be,"
Yeah,
but you go and try this,
well,
and
exactly
it's not
that's
used.
it.
Absolutely, it's such a hard place to be.
It's a hard one, but I do feel there's that piece where ultimately, just being able to put the gear on, try it on, and saying, okay, do I feel comfortable? Do I feel like I can move? Do I feel safe? Do I trust the product and the brand? Absolutely. I think that's that legacy piece of Obo that comes with that, long-standing history of they know what they're talking and doing.
Yeah.
So I think already we're doing something brilliant there at MH1 in terms of coming down. You don't even have to come to camp if there's a camp happening in the area and you see Obo is obviously operating alongside it. Just give them a call and say, hey, I want to try this on, and they'll make that happen. So we're in a good spot. Definitely better than when I first started. There was none of that around for me. There wasn't such thing as goalie camps. So we've come a long way, and I'm really proud to have played just a small part in that, really.
And was that lack of goalie camps growing up and things like that what led you into that sort of coaching and starting up the MH1 camps? Was that something that sort of drove you to do that?
Yeah, yeah, I think you always look back in your career and go, what pieces were missing for me? Where could I help fill those gaps now for everyone that all those people that are inspired to go on and do what I've done. And for me, just being surrounded by like-minded people, I think is a huge part of that MH1 brand, that community family feel, and kind of support one another because we are unique.
Yeah.
We feel like no one understands us. Yet another. So it's amazing how many people we've had now that have been with us from the very beginning and have made long-term friends and almost like sign up to camp just to hang out with their friends for a day, and they've been doing that for 5-6 years. So that for me is more important than anything. And then having that space to just be themselves. Our like slogan is "Be You." As part of that "Be You, Be Limitless" piece. That's for me, that "Be You" piece is super important because we're not trying to create hundreds more Maddie Hinches. Nobody wants that. I want people to go and discover who they are and what style of keeper they are. Because if I had kind of gone into that mold, we talked about it earlier, of like just stand back and do what the rest are doing, I wouldn't be here talking to you today about my career, like for sure. I stayed true to who I was as a goalkeeper and what I could offer the game, and that's what I want people to go on and believe that they can do. It's just using the camps, the spaces, the app, all of it to say, hey, like, who do I want to be? What are my super strengths? What is my USP that makes me stand out above the rest? Because ultimately, there's one spot, isn't there?
Yeah.
And you have to have something when they say, hey, Maddie Hinch, this is how I see her playing. This is her USP. Everyone needs to have that to make you stand out and be the one the coach turns around and goes, yeah, you're the one playing today. And that's the difficult part of the position. But yeah, that's certainly part of MH1 to have those spaces to learn from the best coaches in the country and in the world, and to get those little nuggets along the way. Because there was no such things as an app, even goalie coaches really. I didn't get any specific goalie coaching until I went to university. So it was, I was just making it up as I went along and just learning from watching the odd bit of hockey that was on TV, which was barely never.
Yeah.
So we're in a good spot for that, but there's still plenty of work to do in that area still, for sure.
Absolutely. And did you foresee your camps becoming what they are and having 70 keepers run around the place, or did you just start this off as, I'll do a couple here and there, and then all of a sudden you've got 70, you've an app, you've mentor, and you're going, what's happened?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I remember back in the day we teamed up with Fortitude and Tom Millington and someone who I've known for many years, and ultimately without them, that first camp weekend that we ran in St Albans across 3 days, where we sold out in 15 minutes and had, I think, over like 90 keepers a day. I remember one of our camps was well over 100. We used to have some wild numbers, just kind of filling the spots for people. We ran that for 3 days. It was like, wow, okay, there's something in this. It's not, that was the plan. Just run a one-off goalie camp for a weekend off the back of Rio and kind of feel that buzz, that, the opportunity for people to meet me, have a chat with me, and kind of share that celebration of goalkeeping together. And then from there, it was like, okay, well, we might, a lot of these people want to come back. So how do we then develop that into something that we offer regularly for years forward? And I've been really fortunate. I'm surrounded now by so many amazing people that are able to bring visions to life and do it in a professional way that, I have no idea how to run a business. I'm not going to pretend I do. I'm surrounded by people that do, and they're able to support me doing that. And then my job is simply to kind of be me and to kind of offer the pieces that I enjoyed doing. But from where it's got, was to where it is now is beyond my imagination. Like, we are so much more than a goalie camp. Like, we have an app. Like, that's wild. Like, who has an app? We do. And we have merch. The fact that people still want to buy stuff with my logo on, weird to me, but I'm happy for it. We have, like I said, these communities that have created friendships and bonds, and the staff that work together that are now long-term friends because they've worked on an MH1 tour. Like, these things are, you can't put value on that stuff. And that's massive. We've run overseas camps, sold out a camp in America in minutes. South Africa, again, we could do so much more, but it is a part-time job for me. It's a passion project. It always has been, based on my, something that I just love doing, and want to give back to that community. And now it's growing to encompass so much more. We now have, obviously, inside the D as well, that kind of outfield element to it. We're trying to improve the level of goal scoring, because ultimately, if that improves, goalies improve, and we should be working together rather than these two separate entities. So that piece is really in its baby phase, but exciting nonetheless. It's crazy. Don't get me wrong, I've thought about, should we just go all in MH1 and see what we can do, for sure. But for me, I think I love that what we currently give, and I love that we're not operating all the time right now.
Yes.
And we offer this unique summer tour, which I think is a real special piece. That, my goodness, is quite a logistical operation.
Absolutely.
I'm really, really proud of where we're at as a brand, and I'm super proud of kind of the feedback and the reputation that we have. And for me, it's a legacy piece, and I hope to be able to sustain that for many years to come.
Absolutely. And then obviously you had Delphine Marino come over and bring her camp. We were speaking to her as well a couple of weeks ago, and it was amazing to see then that outfield and goalkeeper sort of collaboration. Like you said, if you can't have good attackers shooting at keepers, then keepers are useless.
Well, this, again, it's just kind of come a little bit from, I'm not going to claim the idea at all myself. It was not me. But for sure, I understood the concept immediately, in that that's a challenge that I faced as a player. It's, one of the reasons I moved my life abroad so much is because I was chasing that top level goal scoring in front of me. If I'm surrounded by people that can hit a ball well, backhand, forehand, play the game a little bit faster, then I'm only going to improve. So for me, we do need to up the level of goal scoring in this country. And I'm very fortunate. I've got friends like Delphina and Donja's Winkels last year from the Netherlands, that are able to come in and support me with this. and help build some awareness about what we're doing. But for now we need to kind of turn into the quality of that delivery and kind of the concept itself. But there's definitely something there, absolutely. Like improve the level of goal scoring, the goalies get better, we work together, and just generally hockey gets better. Because ultimately you save
Absolutely.
more, score more. It's a pretty good blend.
It's a great battle plan.
Yeah, good outcomes are coming.
Because I initially just thought you'd set these camps up for Willow to run around and be sort of
Yeah.
attended by everyone else.
Yeah, it's basically free doggy daycare, isn't
Yeah.
it? So you've caught me out. You're the first one to find it. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, she's the star of the show, and I'm pretty sure that's the only reason anyone comes to camps is to meet Willow the dog. So she's actually right here behind me snoring. I'm glad you can't hear her. But no, that I think like the whole MH1 brand legacy piece, everything that we do is something I'm super proud of, and I'm super grateful for the community that support it, because without that kind of trust in what we do and people signing up, it's pretty hard to run these things.
Absolutely.
So we're in a good spot and we have plenty of exciting things lined up. I'm just trying to work out life right now to what I can give back to it. But we're certainly doing our best as a team.
And is it through the MH1 camps and that coaching that I'll open the door to the likes of the Yukon hockey and stuff over in the States?
I think so. It's definitely a piece of that. When you've got a number of years of experience of running a business and supporting the growth of goalkeepers, and the success that people are showing off the back of that certainly helps open up doors. My playing career, I think, is the biggest door opener. I think that experience that I have of that elite performance environment is the biggest one. There's very few of us that have been there, lived it, and achieved it. The Yukon one was an interesting one. That's come through a former teammate of mine at Holcombe, Chrissy Davidson. She saw that I just announced retirement. They were looking for a coach that had a goalkeeper background, and just thought, should we just try Maddie? And at that point, I hadn't really worked out exactly what I was going to do. I had a number of things popping up, but I was just like, why not? I didn't think I wanted to coach, but why not? I was intrigued by America. I love to travel. I love to explore different places. And I just thought, why not? So I was very open to them from the beginning and said, look, I'm not sure I can do this long term. Life's very much here. But I'm again just grateful for those guys putting so much trust in me and saying, hey, I've just come out of playing, so I don't have a huge coaching background, haven't worked in teams on that before like that, but it was an amazing transition and the perfect one. It kept me busy. It helped me be part of a program, still part of a team environment, had that performance piece. It was really not too dissimilar to what I'd already done, and I think that really helped me move away from playing, because it's really tough when you call it a day. Yeah. It's incredibly scary. And it's tough, and you can feel really lonely. And those guys kind of gave me that family that I'd lost by leaving the national program. And then along came the US opportunity. Yes. Within months of taking that on, I get a phone call from them, and I was just like, "What the hell's going on?"
Yeah, absolutely. And that was my next question. What was that like? Being at the side of the pitch in Paris, with the US ladies team. What was that like? Is that something completely different to being there as a player? Was it a bit more, right, the match is now over? I know as a player you finished your match and you had all your different debriefs and cool downs, but was there a bit more off-pitch stuff that you had to deal with as a coach during the Paris games opposed to being a player?
Yeah, I'll put it this way. It did cross my mind a couple of times where I was like, could have just been out there playing. I swear to God. That's a bit easier than this right now, because as a coach, it is relentless. It's another level of work, because obviously you're preparing for the games, and then like you just said, when the athletes are kind of going through their kind of transitioning out of game one, preparing for game two, all the stuff that's happening in the background is coach led. So we go from game to prepare to game to prepare, and the only time you're off is when you're asleep. So it was like, wow, this is my appreciation for what was happening in the background has now gone to another level, because I was just so oblivious. You are, as an athlete, it's not really your job to be thinking about that. You're very selfish characters in the grand scheme of things. You look after yourself, your teammates, and you put all your focus in being the best version of yourself. But everything else is just taken care of for you, and you don't really think about how that stuff works. So I said to someone, I feel like every athlete should have 6 weeks work experience or something as a coach, really understand the thought processes, how decisions are made, because you can get yourself into a right tiz as an athlete about what they're thinking. I did it, and now I'm on the other side of the table. I am making those decisions, and then it's if and that's the piece that I can play, is because I've lived it, and so recently I kind of know what athletes are looking for and thinking, and I try and do everything I can to take that stress away from them, in terms of it's not for them to be concerned about. Like, at the end of the day, decisions can come down through so many different factors that are out of your control. So it's been fascinating, but for sure I had to pinch myself so many times on the side of the pitch when I'm like, I'm at an Olympic Games, I'm pitch side, I'm on the bench, I'm running the subs. Like, I didn't know these girls' names 6 months ago, and now I'm there, and I'm into manager meetings, which was very strange, because a lot of these managers obviously I knew from a player, and they were finding it very weird. Sat
Yeah.
there, and all the umpires, and so it was a really amazing. Like, honestly, I had the best few weeks with the team, and again, just couldn't believe that I was so lucky enough to be offered that opportunity that people work years for and don't get given the chance for. So, really grateful for the US Association for putting so much trust in me, and I feel like it's just the beginning. We've obviously got an amazing 4 years ahead of us, with LA as the next one. Plenty of work to do, but yeah, for sure, coaching and playing, they are not the same, and
No.
a completely different load and work requirement, but also different. Like, the playing piece in itself, you're the ones out there, you're the ones carrying the weight of the performance on your shoulders. I don't miss that piece, if I'm honest, from retiring. That's really something. It's emotionally challenging, that roller coaster ride that you go through, but you have a similar one as a coach. And also, you don't really have then the control of what actually happens out on the pitch, and that's tricky. Whereas,
Yes.
like, I guess I felt that a bit as a goalie, because I couldn't really control anything. I couldn't control my first touch, so maybe I'm used to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a fascinating. What am I in now? Really, a couple of years into my coaching career from that perspective, and it's been an eye opener, to say the least.
Absolutely. Was it something that when you went into it, did you notice a big difference to how the US setup was and the likes of the GB setup was? I know there's always going to be some similarities, but did you notice a big difference on, right, this is how we're going to set up, or the playing style, or anything like that?
Not necessarily. I think the, not when it comes to like match day processes and structures and approach. I think that's all very similar. I think
Yeah.
we all kind of run similar like hymn sheets when it comes to that. I think the biggest differences is actually just like programs, national programs, and cultures. And obviously the US have their own challenges with the college system and the structure of that, and they don't have a club hockey system. And
Yeah.
there's certain things that like the British program would not necessarily have to accommodate in, but then they also have their own challenges and things like that. So it's interesting how like two programs with the same goals and same ultimate outcomes that they're going after can operate quite differently. How that Monday to Sunday looks, what the expectations are of the athletes, how they're funded, the way they travel, the resources, all that is been quite interesting to see the two differences. So yeah, I've enjoyed it, but I'm still very much learning. Like the US side of things is amazing in many respects, but also does face its challenge. Like college piece is a really interesting one, and having transitioned out of working in it to now coaching college athletes, I think that was perfect. I think if I'd come straight in, having not worked in the college system, I'd be even more naive
Yes.
to how these things work, because I'd just be like, well, why can't they be there? Or I don't, and of course I don't understand. And it's for me to learn and adapt my coaching and understanding piece to that as well. So yeah, no, enjoying it, and definitely like home will become Charlotte, North Carolina. So blue skies are often, hot weather. I'm not very good in the hot though. My freckles don't like it, and Willow will absolutely hate it. But apart from that, I'm really kind of excited for the next 4 years and moving life there and just giving it a good crack, really.
Oh, brilliant. And I look, all the very best for it. I have one final question, I do promise.
Go for it.
It's a question I have asked everybody. I think it's probably the most important question out of this, because it will determine how much I respect you. When you are getting ready for training or a match, do you put your socks and shoes on, sock, shoe, or sock, shoe, shoe?
Oh my goodness, never had this one, but it's simple. Always socks and then shoes.
Oh, thank goodness.
Who does socks? I've never seen that in my life, actually. I don't think.
There's been a couple of people, and I can't name names because it's now I've had to delete the episodes because it's fully ruined them for me. Yeah, no, there is some people out there, and yeah, you do have to question what else is happening with them if they're putting on sock shoe. It's mental.
Yeah, it's a little bit offensive, the idea of looking across the change room and they've got like a full shoe on and sock and then nothing. I'm not. Yeah,
And a barefoot. Yeah, no, I
I agree.
can't cope with that.
I'm glad we don't have to delete the episode.
Absolutely. No, it's been too good to do that. But no, Maddie, thank you very much for all this. I know you've sort of started running out of time. I didn't even realize how long we've been going for. But do you have anything to plug? You can absolutely plug away, or anything that you say I'll put into the descriptions and things as well for people to find you.
No, honestly, I'm not a plug-in kind of girl. I'll probably get told off from everyone around me that tells me I should do this stuff more. But ultimately, look, I'm grateful for the opportunity to chat to you guys and just share, like I said to you before, like that having those spaces to share your stories and just chat all things hockey. They're pretty hard to come by these days. So I'm grateful for that and your time. And yeah, obviously any links towards kind of MH1 and what we're doing there and hope growing that awareness piece is always helpful. But just a thank you kind of to you for all that you do in our little sport that we love so much. And yeah, I'm sure we'll continue to do stuff together in the future.
Absolutely. I can't see why not. But guys, thank you very much for watching. As usual, if you don't want to look at my face, which is completely understandable, you can listen to us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. But let us know in the comments below what your favorite part of this episode was. And thank you very much. And Maddie, thank you again.
You're more than welcome.